Welcome, friends. This is Mr. Garbo. Welcome to First Amendment Media, Free Speech Radio. This is our first episode. Lots to discuss tonight. I appreciate you tuning in. This is, like I said, our first episode, and we are First Amendment Media. Many of you may be thinking that we only discuss issues of the First Amendment, and that's not true. We discuss on this program all issues that are affecting liberty. We'll try to cover a diverse range of topics from any issue of liberty, whether it be free speech, press, religion, gun control, search and seizure, privacy, etc., due process. All can be discussed. We call it First Amendment Media, First Amendment Radio, because the First Amendment is what allows us to be on air. It's the fundamental rights that we have as Americans. We have many rights, many of which aren't exercised on a daily basis. For example, you have a right not to quarter troops in your home. I don't know anyone who's ever been asked to quarter troops. However, it's an important right. During the time of the founding of our nation, that was something that happened, that families were made to quarter troops, and that wasn't fair. And if that was ever beginning to happen again, you can be sure that we would pay attention to that on this program. But the First Amendment is probably the most important amendment, and it is under assault. It's under assault every day from numerous actors and entities. But the rights that are under assault, especially in the wake of the Sandy Hook tragedy, are our rights to bear arms under the Second Amendment. And there are many ideas and opinions that float around about the Second Amendment. The security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I do not understand how that could be written any clearer. Yet, because of the media, because of the left-wing media, you are made to think differently. The Supreme Court has ruled twice that there is an individual right to keep and bear arms. A lower court in the past 3 weeks has ruled that you have a right to keep and bear arms. Comprehensive handgun bans, as were in place in Washington, D.C., have been, and Chicago, two extraordinarily violent cities, have been struck down. The Supreme Court has ruled that individual cities cannot have these comprehensive gun bans, and this applies to the states as it does to the federal government. Your rights to bear arms are in place, and they are totally under assault. Wake up. Throughout the week, I've written on First Amendment Media and also on my personal blog and website, Mr. Garbo. That's M-I-S-T-E-R, Garbo, G-A-R-B-O .wordpress.com. I encourage you to visit and visit often. I try to update it as often as I possibly can. The first article I'd like to highlight is one that I wrote on December 19th called "What's Wrong with America?" This is asked numerous times, probably by each person every day. But America is getting worse. It's getting worse and worse and worse. We've had a terrible tragedy that's befallen our country in the past week. Historically, in the wake of tragedies, Americans come together, they work together, and they pray together. We've worked in unison. We've triumphed through hurdles. We've triumphed through 9/11. We've triumphed through presidential assassinations. Yet, since 9/11, when we are faced with a tragedy, our response now is more security, less freedom. You should never compromise liberty for security, ever. That's a founding principle of this country. And why don't people know that? Why don't they know that that's something that Benjamin Franklin, one of our founding fathers, declared? It's because America is asleep. Americans would rather be watching foolish television programs and paying attention to nonsense like zombies, like teen vampires, like the apocalypse that didn't happen yesterday. And nobody in their right mind thought that it was going to happen. The Mayans are laughing at you. Again, wake up. Wake up. Get your head out of the stupid fashion magazines. Get your head out of the NFL football games that don't matter. It doesn't matter if your NFL team wins tomorrow. It doesn't matter. It's fun to watch, I'll admit. I watch football, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if the team wins, fine. If they lose, I'll live. But Americans are not paying attention. And that's why we're compromising our liberty for security. And it's got to stop. After 9/11, the Patriot Act was passed. Sure, there are probably some okay things about the bill. It allows law enforcement and intelligence agencies to speak. Part of that might be good. Part of it might not be. There's a lot of privacy things that are probably being compromised. There's a lot of things that are going on that we just simply don't know about. And whenever that's exposed, there's a lot of hoopla and outrage behind it. Just think of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. That was whistleblowers are just not tolerated the way they used to be. We're allowing the government to spy on us. They're spying on us at all times. They're listening to this radio program, even though everything that we're talking about on this program is 100% legal. And again, this is First Amendment media. This is free speech. This is free speech radio. After 9/11, of course, TSA. Our airports are now not places that we look forward to going to. It's a hassle. You spend a lot of money on a plane ticket, and before you even get on the plane, you're groped. In my lifetime, there's always been security on the airlines. I know in other people's lifetime there hasn't been. We got our bags scanned. There are even some minor pat-downs if you failed to pass the metal detector. But now we're being groped. When we're allowing this because we're asleep. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I don't have anything to hide. I don't care if I'm searched. Well, I do. I don't have anything to hide. I do not carry arms on planes. I would never have a desire to commit any sort of criminal offense in any way, especially on an aircraft. All I want to do is get to my destination. But I don't want to be groped. I do not want to have my genitals felt. I've passed through the metal detector. I've completed that. I have a right to privacy. I have a right not to be touched. Michael Bloomberg, the tyrannical mayor of New York City, who seems to believe that everyone should be subservient to New Yorkers, that the entire nation revolves around New York City and what happens there, has been an outspoken proponent of gun control. He's also a proponent of limiting the types of soda that you drink and the amounts of soda that you drink. Like that is any of his business. Our health is not his business. This is not the Soviet Union. Michael Bloomberg has called on the president to act quickly on banning guns, which is he has been, again, a major proponent of. He is the head of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, a coalition of tyrannical mayors across the nation who want to ban what they call illegal weapons, but really that's code word for any weapon that he doesn't like. Really any weapon, period. He does not believe that you have any right to keep and bear arms, as the founding fathers plainly put in our Constitution. It's not an opinion. That's in our Constitution. Those rights are unalienable. But what's even worse is that Michael Bloomberg this week has called on Obama not to ask Congress to pass more gun laws or something that would be in his constitutional realm, but he's asked him, ordered him, to use whatever is in his executive capacity to do about guns, and to do it now. Again, I will remind you, Mr. Bloomberg, that this is not the Soviet Union. The president enforces the laws that Congress makes. So he doesn't declare it. These executive orders are totally out of control, and they've got to be stopped. Michael Bloomberg has got to be stopped because he does not rely on fact. He relies on his desire to control the population. That's what gun control is. The private ownership of firearms is a rich tradition in this country, and it has nothing to do with hunting. Sure, people hunt, and that's something that should never be taken away from people, but the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with protecting your home. The Second Amendment is a hedge against government tyranny. That is why people like Mayor Bloomberg and President Obama want your guns. It's the same reason that Adolf Hitler wanted the German citizens' guns, which had already been primarily banned by the time that Hitler took power in 1933. But regardless, those citizens were disarmed. 11 million of them were killed, systematically executed. I'm not saying or suggesting that that's about to happen in the United States, but ignoring history and thinking that history can never repeat itself is the most irresponsible line of thinking that anybody can engage in. It's simply unacceptable. The Soviet Union killed 100 million people, give or take. Totally disarmed, all of them. How can you stand up to it? If you don't have that hedge, if you don't have that one thing that tells the government, look, if things get too out of control, we're not going to be pushed around. We will defend ourselves. If that's taken away, how do you enforce all the other rights? They come and say, well, you're not going to speak freely. You're not going to practice your religion. You're not going to church. You're not going to petition the government. We're going to give you orders and you're going to follow them. If that happens, what are you going to do if you're totally disarmed? What can you do? That's my question. And that's the reason why you need high capacity magazines, because the citizens should be able to carry the same sort of firearms that the military is carrying. In my personal belief, I think that it should be